Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: Beijing announced Monday that it will cap retail fuel price increases, with the measure taking effect at midnight as oil prices surge amid the Iran war. Taiwan will soon receive its first batch of new U.S. fighter jets specifically designed for the island after years of delay. A warning from Capitol Hill: lawmakers want stricter export rules for cutting-edge AI chips. It comes after 3 people were charged with smuggling high-end NVIDIA chips to China. And more dismissals of top nuclear and missile specialists in China, with experts saying it shows officials' lack of faith in made-in-China weapons. Drivers in Beijing flooded gas stations as the government triggered its largest fuel price hike this year, adding $13 to a standard fill-up. The surge comes despite a global cooling of Brent crude oil as markets react to a sudden diplomatic breakthrough between the U.S. and Iran. On Monday, Beijing issued an emergency order raising gas and diesel prices by over $160 per ton. This marks China's 5th fuel price hike this year and the largest so far. Officials say that without government intervention, the price of gasoline and diesel would have increased by more than $300 per ton. That same day, global markets began cooling. Brent crude fell by about $10 after President Trump announced very good and productive conversations with Iran over the weekend. As the U.S. enters its 4th week of strikes against the Iranian regime, this diplomatic pivot is easing pressure on global oil prices.
My life is a deal. That's all I do is deals my whole life. So they called. I didn't call. They called. They want to make a deal. And we are very willing to make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. And it's got to be no more wars, no more nuclear weapons.
Last Friday, the U.S. Treasury issued waivers allowing some sanctioned Iranian oil onto the global market. About 140 million barrels currently at sea are now cleared for sale, enough to cover roughly 10 to 14 days of worldwide supply. Most of it is being sold to China at deep discounts. These waivers are set to remain in effect for 30 days.
We're also waiving certain oil-related sanctions to reduce prices. So we have sanctions on some countries. We're going to take those sanctions off till this.
But you have ships that are out there that are loaded up with oil. Rather than keep it there, I would rather see it go to the system. Any small amount of money that Iran gets is not going to have any difference in this war. But I want to have the system be lubricated.
Although Iranian oil bought at deep discounts has risen slightly in price after the U.S. temporarily lifted sanctions, these imports account for only about 13% of China's total oil purchases. Global benchmark Brent crude fell as supply increased, helping to reduce China's overall energy costs. But for everyday drivers in China, fuel costs are hitting harder. Next, some good news for Taiwan from U.S. defense suppliers after years of delays. The island is set to receive the first batch of new fighter jets it ordered from Washington as early as this September. It comes as the Pentagon signals the Iran strikes won't shift its commitment to Taiwan. NTD's Flora Hua has the latest. Flora, what do we know so far?
Yes, Tiff. So Taiwan's Defense Minister Wellington Koo confirmed Monday that the shipments of U.S. arms sale will begin later this year. A major part of this package is those new F-16V fighter jets, which are specifically designed for Taiwan to counter the Chinese military. Taiwan's Air Force will have about 200 F-16 fighter jets when the arms package is completed. It's worth noting Washington approved the order in 2019. It's been nearly 7 years now. Both U.S. and Taiwanese lawmakers have been pushing to end the delays. Washington's defense supplier Lockheed Martin also confirmed that the production is proceeding at full capacity. Tiff.
Well, that is good news for Taiwan. Now, the updates follow a congressional hearing last week where senior officials from the Trump administration testified on arms sales to Taiwan. So, Flora, what are the concerns here among U.S. lawmakers and officials?
Yes, Tiff. So there are growing bipartisan concerns that the military operation in the Middle East could dilute U.S. defense focus on the Indo-Pacific. It could also slow weapons sales to Taiwan. But the Trump administration says this is not the case. Here's what senior officials said during the hearing. Watch.
I would say that in regards to Taiwan, in the last 90 days, we have moved $11.1 billion to Taiwan. So in regards to overall, have we delayed moving things to Taiwan? We haven't.
Provision of security cooperation, security assistance to Taiwan is our top priority.
Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Stanley Brown added that the government is working to expedite delayed shipments to Taiwan. On Monday, Lockheed Martin said it's finalizing production of new F-16 fighter jets and preparing to ship them to the island as early as September. Tiff, back to you.
All right, thanks for those updates, Flora. Staying on Taiwan, the leader of its largest opposition party said Monday the island nation can improve its ties with Beijing without being anti-U.S., but the governing party doesn't agree.
Taiwan's survival depends on stable relations with China. Chair of the Kuomintang, known as the KMT, Cheng Li-wen, told reporters.
The Kuomintang has long had a very good relationship with the United States, and this will not affect our intention to improve relations with the mainland. There is no contradiction here, nor is there any need to choose one or the other.
Former lawmaker Cheng has signaled a swing towards even closer ties with Beijing since she won election as chair in October 2025. China views democratic Taiwan as its own territory. Her stance has drawn criticism from Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te's Democratic Progressive Party, which says the KMT wants to sell out Taiwan's freedoms and democracy to Beijing. China has stepped up its military pressure on Taiwan and has never announced the use of force to bring the island under its control. Cheng was asked about her attitude to any possible future union across the Taiwan Strait.
The two sides of the strait are still far too unprepared to discuss an ultimate solution, so what we must handle now is how to create a peaceful and stable cross-strait relationship.
Taiwan's political parties are gearing up for local elections later in the year, seen as a key gauge ahead of the next presidential election in early 2028.
Here at NTD, we have a very special worldwide premiere coming up Tuesday. A new documentary follows the world-renowned classical Chinese dance company Shenyun Performing Arts as it rises to global acclaim. That's despite facing intimidation and threats of violence linked to the Chinese Communist Party. Blending personal storytelling with investigative reporting, Unbroken, the untold story of Shenyun reveals what happens when art, faith, and freedom collide with authoritarian power, and how resilience, community, and cultural revival endure in the face of intimidation. Here's a first look.
I just had a few questions regarding your coverage of Shenyun.
I'm not going to do point-by-point rebuttals.
Have you heard from the New York Times yet?
No. In fact, when it came out, I was like waiting for them to call me, but nothing.
The New York Times still has this agenda-setting power. Once they decide what the story is, it's kind of an uphill battle.
We'll have to see where this takes us.
Why are they doing this? What can I do to tell people our side?
For the past 5 years, I've toured the world with my brother by my side.
But never would I have imagined what battle I joined.
That's completely not what it is like here.
How much more of this are we going to be able to take? It's particularly hard for me to read because I have two young daughters at home.
Have you seen the show before?
These weren't ordinary citizens.
How did you stumble upon him?
How many? 92,000 articles.
How are you going to write an article trying to do an expose or investigation when you're not even talking with any of the health care professionals that are treating the performers?
That really kind of blew this wide open.
There's something much bigger going on here.
They're calling out Shenyun Performing Arts for precise strikes. This persecution has come to America's shores.
This was done with the purpose of the tire exploding on the highway.
Hey, buddy, you guys are okay?
We're defending those we love.
Unbroken, the untold story of Shenyun premieres on NTD Tuesday and will be followed by a live Q&A with executive producer Steve Lance. But before that, we'll have a special preview here in studio featuring conversations with Shenyun artists and investigative journalist Joshua Phillip. He's been covering the Chinese Communist Party's transnational repression for over a decade. That's all coming up Tuesday, March 24th at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on NTD. Don't miss the worldwide premiere of Unbroken, the untold story of Shen Yuan, followed by a live Q&A, and be sure to tune in a little earlier for our exclusive preview of the film. Next, two lawmakers sounding alarm over advanced AI chips. They're calling on U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to enforce export controls. This after 3 individuals were charged Thursday for conspiring to smuggle advanced NVIDIA chips to China.
According to the DOJ indictment, the 3 suspects conspired to sell $2.5 billion worth of servers to a company in Southeast Asia, and some were repackaged and shipped to China. Those servers included NVIDIA's B200 and H200 GPUs, which are banned from sale to China without a license. 1 U.S. citizen and 2 Taiwanese citizens were allegedly involved in the conspiracy. 2 of the defendants were arrested while 1 remains at large. The U.S. citizen, named Wally Liao, was a co-founder of server maker Supermicro. The company said Liao has resigned from its board of directors and was put on leave. On the following day, Senator Tom Cotton and Congressman Bill Huizenga sent a letter to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick expressing their concern over the security of advanced U.S. chips. They're calling on the Commerce Department to protect key U.S. intellectual property from communist China's reach.
Growing dismissals of top nuclear and missile specialists may reveal deeper issues for China's military. Experts say it shows officials' lack of faith in homegrown weapons. The Chinese Academy of Engineering has removed 3 top academics from its website. These include experts in nuclear weapons, missiles, and radar systems. The Academy did not provide a reason for their removal, but a week ago, a Hong Kong newspaper reported that they are likely being investigated for corruption. These aren't the only cases. Over the past 3 years, at least 6 other academics lost their titles. Shenmi Shi, an associate professor at a Taiwanese university, believes the purge is linked to recent reports of Chinese weapons failing in the field. Their anti-stealth radar allegedly didn't work in Venezuela when U.S. troops caught Nicolas Maduro. And the surface-to-air missile batteries used by Iran were apparently taken out by Israel and the U.S. within the first hour of strikes. One Taiwanese senior analyst believes the removals are connected to the military crackdown earlier this year. Many top officials were purged, including Xi Jinping's second-in-command, General Zhang Youxia. Those arrested likely confessed and named others, expanding the investigation. The removals echo a military scandal from 2024, when Bloomberg reported that China's missiles were filled with water instead of fuel. Coming up, acting without the owner's approval. OpenClaw, a fast-growing AI tool, has been taking China by storm. What are the risks? And with the Strait of Hormuz still closed, what are the short and long-term impacts on global markets and on China's economy? An expert weighs in. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A powerful new AI tool is exploding in popularity, especially in China. But not everyone is convinced it's safe. OpenClaw is designed to act like a personal assistant, handling everything from emails to reservations with little oversight. And now it's going mainstream after Chinese tech giant Tencent built it into WeChat on Sunday, the country's largest social and payment platform. OpenClaw has surged in popularity since launching in November, especially in China, where more than 600 million people already use AI tools. Unlike other AI tools, OpenClaw can take control of a user's computer to complete tasks without the user's approval. That convenience is driving demand, with crowds recently lining up outside Tencent's headquarters just to install it. But the technology is also raising serious concerns. Users report the AI acting unpredictably, deleting emails, making unauthorized purchases, and exposing sensitive data online. Chinese cybersecurity officials say nearly 23,000 users may already be vulnerable to cyber attacks. Regulators are stepping in, limiting its use, and working on new safety standards. The global race for AI dominance may be shifting. A new report out Monday is raising concerns about China's growing edge in artificial intelligence. Despite U.S. restrictions on advanced AI chips, Chinese companies are rapidly gaining momentum. The findings come from the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, which says China's open-source AI models are now dominating global usage. Chinese companies like Alibaba and Moonshot AI are leading. They offer cheaper and more accessible tools that developers are adopting. Some estimates suggest nearly 80% of American AI startups are using Chinese open source models. As AI is deployed across factories, logistics, and robotics, it's producing real-world data that continues to improve on the technology. The report says Feedback Loop is allowing Beijing to innovate even without access to Washington's most advanced chips. It's worth noting there have been reports Chinese AI tools being used to enhance Beijing's military. Meanwhile, U.S. companies like OpenAI and Anthropic are investing billions to stay ahead. But the gap may be closing. Chinese tools like DeepSeek and Qwen have surged in downloads, in some cases surpassing OpenAI's ChatGPT. However, experts warn that relying on Chinese AI may come with security risks and political biases in favor of Beijing. President Trump threatened to obliterate Iran's power plants if Tehran did not fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz. To discuss it, NTD's Don Ma was joined by Rod Martin, political analyst, founder and CEO of Martin Capital.
The reality is that the United States benefits more from the closure of the strait than it might wish to let on. We saw this past week in particular, the Europeans absolutely refuse to guarantee their own oil supply with not even with combat forces, not even with fighter jets or warships, frigates to escort tankers, minesweepers to help clear out the strait. So what does that do? It demonstrates that America is the indispensable ally in NATO. NATO is not actually reliable, and all their hectoring of the United States is a joke. And it gives Trump an opportunity to transfer the locus of maritime insurance from the City of London to Washington. So if the strait remains closed just a little bit longer, the world isn't going to end from Trump's perspective. Meanwhile, we actually finished the job of making it impossible for the Iranians to continue mining the strait, continue threatening commerce, and eventually, God willing, we actually caused the fall of the regime.
So let me just add to your point, Rod. President Trump has previously said the U.S. doesn't need anybody when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. He's almost asking for help just to see which countries is actually going to help the United States. And President Trump has said that he will remember, the U.S. will remember which countries answer to the U.S.'s help. But let me also get your thoughts on oil prices right now. How much of this price increase do you think is driven by actual supply disruptions versus speculation of the market? And is there an element of overreaction in your opinion?
Oh, it's absolutely an overreaction, and it's gonna come back down. You know, you have several elements of this. Obviously, the strait is closed more by the insurance situation than it is by the actual military situation. That much has been clear from the outset of the war. So once that's resolved, you bring down prices a bit. Once you get closer to the strait being cleared, that's gonna bring down prices a lot. The prices aren't crazy right now. They're actually quite a lot lower than they were at the outset of the Ukraine war, and those came down quite rapidly too. So what you really get to is once this war is concluded successfully, there's going to be no problem with transit through the strait. So that brings 20% of the world's crude back online without any problem. A free Iran, or even an Iranian regime that makes peace with the U.S., is suddenly going to be in a different situation. It's going to be able to ship oil unsanctioned, which brings all of that Iranian production back onto the global market. Heretofore, it's just been steeply discounted and almost entirely shipped to China. Now it would be available for the whole world at a market price, which actually helps Iran get back on its feet. And finally, and this is the crucial thing, everybody has forgotten that oil prices have had a built-in risk premium for decades based on the possibility that Iran might close the strait. Well, we're seeing that in real time now. We're also seeing that that's about to end. When it's gone definitively, oil prices aren't just going to come back down to where they were. They're going to drop a lot lower than that.
So Rod, okay, let me ask you one last question here. I'm wondering, how is the Iran war impacting China's energy supply, specifically oil? I'm hearing reports that China is still getting some oil.
Well, they are, and to the degree we're allowing Iranian oil to ship, they're certainly getting some of that, although Besant has said that we're going to redirect a good bit of that oil. The real problem for China is not so much the supply shock as the loss of the deeply discounted oil they've been getting from Venezuela, from Iran, and from Russia. That accounts for more than 40% of their total imports, and they are highly import dependent. So if you're getting that at a ridiculous discount, that's running your economy. That's a huge cushion. It is an unfair trade advantage that they are getting by breaking international law that's about to go away. So in dealing with Iran, we dry up one of the main sources of that unfair advantage for the Chinese. And as we get to a peace in Ukraine, we're going to see the rest of it dry up because Russia's oil will no longer be sanctioned. It will be going at market price. And China has a teetering economy that's going to impact in a pretty ugly way.
Okay, just one final thing then, very quickly. So if the Russian oil dries up too, how do you see the Chinese economy and its trajectory? Where is it headed?
I think they're in danger of a real recession. And of course, you understand a recession is sustained growth under 1%. So, potentially still grow. I've seen some pretty good numbers that suggest that the Chinese economy isn't growing anymore, certainly growing much, much less than its official numbers would suggest. So this is a country that's in a lot of trouble. As you know, they have a tremendous demographic crisis. They're at less than a 1.0 total fertility rate. It takes 2.1 to be able to just replace your population. We have several smart demographers who believe that that's going to stabilize at about a 0.8. What that does is it takes China's population from a current 1.3 billion range to about 310 million by the end of the century. And in the short term, of course, the older people are ballooning in number while the working people, the working age people, are shrinking rapidly. So you have fewer people taking care of more and more older people, and their investments are in real estate that's shrinking in value precisely because there are fewer people. So China's economy has about 10 years tops before this starts going into free fall. And this oil shift potentially pushes it toward, if not over, that cliff.
Wow, 10 years tops. This is very eye-opening insight, Rod. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For on-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.